It must be written in the stars for me to swear so much. Hell, even my astrological chart says so. You have been warned. Content is not suitable for all listeners. Welcome. You're listening to Bewitched Banter.
I'm Krista, and I believe that people are inherently shitty.
And I'm Amy, and I tend to believe that people are naturally good.
But ironically, I'm a super believer in the supernatural and all things spiritual.
And I'm a total skeptic.
We're best friends, and in this podcast, we're seeking to explore and understand each other's perspectives with deep dives into the spooky, the spiritual, the magical, and the mystical.
And some straight up spoofs.
Today, it is witching hour story time, and we are covering astrology stories.
Cheers!
Cheers!
That is the first time I think you were able to do that without looking at
Ever?
our little intro.
Our intro notes? I'm proud of myself.
I'm impressed.
Thank you.
So you actually have some memory in there.
Wow. Ouch. Yeah, no, my memory is really shitty, to Amy's point. It's really scary. But yes, I do have
It is
some.
alarming sometimes. I'm like, we talked about this, Krista, for like a half hour at a length. How do you not remember this? But it's okay.
I've always had a memory problem. It impedes my confidence and self-worth at many costs.
Oh, sorry.
But,
I didn't know I was talking about something
but that's
so
okay.
sensitive.
It's all right. We're working through it. And you sort of complimented me, so thanks.
It was a monopliment. Aren't those the best? Well, you are probably not going to like this, but I absolutely loved this when I found it. And I did my little chuckle to myself.
Okay.
My evil laugh. In Sweden, a study was conducted at Lund University, and it concluded that narcissism is the strongest predictor of people who believe in astrology. And to deepen the wound just a little bit more, let me twist that knife.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
They also said that the IQ level of believers tend to be lower, too. So drop the mic there.
Boom. But remember, I do question things. Yes, I'm a vain little bitch. We cover this all the time. But I question things. Even though I believe in what's the woo-woo shit, there are things I question. Believe it or not.
And I know on Tuesday's episode, I kind of mentioned that there's like this huge uptick of people who believe in astrology. Mm-hmm. And through the same study at Lund University, they kind of gave an explanation of why they think this is. And they think it's because of like outside stressors that are happening that we can't control, that people have kind of led to astrology as a way, like, for a symbol of hope. Like, you can
yes.
Like, we've been inundated with like climate change. Like, I mean, all of us have climate doom. Well, most of us who believe in it,
absolutely.
and then like
those of us that do believe in that science, yes.
Yeah. And then like the ongoing pandemic, we've obviously been through a shitstorm in the past 2 years. So this is kind of part of the reason people have been leaning towards astrology, because it gives them hope, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think, like I said, I do think it's harmless to believe in it, but they do bring up the fact through the study that people who believe in astrology tend to lean to believing into pseudoscience, the more they're likely to believe in conspiracy theories.
Okay, well, that tracks, because I do. Yeah. My ass got some conspiracy theories. I'm not a QAnon person, no, that shit's whack. But there are things that I certainly don't trust.
Like what?
In the government. Like, there's motherfucking aliens for sure.
Oh, I think there's extraterrestrial life for sure.
And they know it. And I think they have that technology. The government has the technology that ETs have, and they don't give it to the general public.
I just don't think aliens are like what we picture.
Right. Yeah. Anyway.
What any other ones?
That's a biggie for me. Like, they're definitely hiding that
Anything
shit.
Anything else? Do you think 9/11 didn't happen?
Oh, no, fuck that. I knew people. And I obviously believe in Sandy Hook. We've talked about that at length because I knew people there too. No, I think...
I kind of said that as a joke. I knew you believed 9/11.
Oh, my bad. Well, shit, I don't know. You were taking a stab earlier. Gotta defend myself here. No, really the aliens one, and then obviously the government listening and tracking and
Oh,
watching.
well, yeah. I think they do that through our phone.
And I think they have been through our TVs since TVs became a thing and radios, but that's neither here nor there. But those are the few that I'm like, no, I don't trust the government.
Yeah, I get it. And so now I'm kind of asking, like, why do narcissistic people tend to believe in astrology?
Okay.
But they do answer this. So they believe it's because they have, like, a self-absorbed view of the world. And in my own words, how I would put it is astrology is all about reading how the world impacts you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all the horoscope's about. It doesn't really talk about the community at large. Also, astrology, horoscopes, and predictions tend to reinforce grandiose feelings, and this is why it may appeal to narcissists too. And to reiterate this point even further and drive it home, I'm going to read both of our horoscopes from today.
Okay.
Which I got from the Chicago Sun-Times. And
all right.
And again, remember, it reinforces grandiose feelings.
Great paper, by the way. Great journalism.
So this is for Gemini, for myself.
All right.
Once a year, the sun is at the top of your chart for 4 weeks. Oh my! That time has arrived. This symbolizes that you are in the limelight, and this light is flattering. Obviously, this is an advantage you can use to go after what you want. Okay.
Oh, well, okay, let's hear mine. And I have comments.
Libra, you're ready to swing into work mode in the next 4 weeks because you want to be as productive as possible. You're busy. You want to make every action count because you want the most bang for your buck. You even want to improve your health. I'm almost perfect.
Yeah, that part cut right on out. I mean, I just inhaled buffalo dip and chips. So that part's right on out. And I fucked up my ankle really badly while trying to get healthy.
And I'm trying to convince Krista to go to all-you-can-eat sushi thing after this.
Sushi's better than cheeseburgers that we wanted to do initially.
With all the cream cheese we're about to devour.
Oh my god, fuck yeah, I'm hungry. Let's go. Let's wrap this up. No, I'm just kidding. Wait, but on yours, it makes sense to me. Again, I'm interpreting it because I'm a believer, but like, what I say about your arms last week? You look good, bitch.
Well, thank you, girl.
And you've been looking good. She's been putting in a lot of work in the gym. I have not. To my horoscope point, I have also been very productive with work and this podcast. Like I had a little come Jesus a couple weeks ago and it resonated, and I've been busting my ass to get shit right and tight. So that aligns, but again, could be just forming it to fit my life and our lives, but it tracks for me.
But I was also kind of reading it to point out how if you were narcissistic, that it's like complimenting you, the horoscope.
Oh, yeah, well, look what I just did.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I am.
Case closed.
Fuck.
But the whole reason I bring up the study, first, because I chuckled a little bit and I thought it was funny. But second is because it kind of ties to my story. So when you think of narcissistic people, who do you tend to think of?
My ex-father-in-law.
Well, groups of people, like generalizations.
Oh, celebrities.
Celebrities or who else? I'll help you out there. Okay, so...
Yeah, celebrities encompass a lot, so go ahead.
People who are considered what I'm going to call rulers, right?
Oh, okay.
People who govern us. And so it's...
Oh, yes. Politicians, absolutely. Yes.
And so if being narcissistic is one of the biggest indicators of believing in astrology, then it's no damn surprise that many rulers in the past have used astrology to guide them in making key decisions that impact our communities, our countries, and has global impacts.
Nice segue,
yes.
My friend. I dig the storytelling here. Got it. Get it.
And I'm going to be covering and highlighting several rulers. Gosh, that word is hard. I used to go to speech class for the letter R.
Jaru.
So
murder.
I guess I will be showing that I graduated speech today. Several rulers that looked up to the skies above.
You graduated.
I did in third grade.
I'm sorry. Oh my god.
Third grade I graduated. And because I remember I'd have to practice my R's. And these rulers look up to the sky and ask, how should they rule and govern their people? I thought this was super interesting. I did not know this. Actually, I didn't know majority of this. The White House came forward and has publicly recognized that Ronald Reagan and his wife Nancy would often consult an astrologer to help them make decisions on important events. Did you know this?
What? Had no idea.
Yes. An astrologer from California came forward stating that she helped the Reagans with understanding astrology, and how they should make decisions based on it.
Wow. No, I did not. That amazes me that a president would actually use that to make decisions.
Yeah, isn't that mind-blowing? And of course, Ronald Reagan has denied all of these claims.
Of course.
But there's several people who have came forward. For example, a former official came forward and informed the media that the president timed his announcement that he would run for re-election to align with the stars. Also, he scheduled his inauguration to take place at 12:10, which is obviously a very weird time. Mm-hmm. Why 12:10?
Yeah, what is that?
Why wouldn't you just do 12? Why wouldn't you do 12:30, weirdo? But it's because he believed it aligned with a favorable astrological portent, whatever that means. Who knows? Several royal people consulted astrologers to help them make big decisions too. One of the main ones is Queen Elizabeth. And during this time, several people, kind of like you talked about, saw astrology as a science, right? Mm-hmm. And they would often refer to astrologers for when they should be crowned, when should they head to battle, and even personal matters like who should I marry? And
I could use it right now. Who should I marry next?
Would you actually trust the astrologer?
No, absolutely not. Well, I don't know. TBD. I'll let you know.
Okay. And I thought this was crazy. So at one point, it was considered an actual criminal act to cast the birth chart of a royal family member.
Damn.
Because it was considered as insider information.
Oh, I was thinking of witchcraft, but...
And should be top secret. And so this is why a lot of royal members, they would actually lie about the day they were born because they didn't want their...
shit.
They didn't want enemies of the state knowing when they were born because they could then use their birth chart and know insider information.
Whoa, that's fucking cool. That's very Game of Thrones shit. Mm-hmm. I like it.
And Queen Elizabeth hired Dr. John Lee to be her spiritual and astrological advisor. And at one point, Queen Elizabeth was facing the possibility of getting her head whacked off because Queen Mary...
Wait, you said that. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, so Queen Mary doesn't like Queen Elizabeth's ass.
Was this like Bloody Mary?
Yes.
Oh.
So Mary B. Hayton.
Ouch.
Mary B. Hayton. So Elizabeth goes to Dr. Lee and she's like, I need a reading. Help me. She wanted to know if she was, am I going to have my head whacked off? From his reading, he said, no, actually, calm down. Take a deep breath. It's going to be that bitch Mary's going to die. And she's going to die suddenly. Bitch. And then the throne is going to open up for you to take over. I had to do some fact checking because I don't remember middle school history. What happened, right?
Right.
Mary had been planning to overthrow Elizabeth. And there were rumors that Mary was planning on killing her. But this information got leaked. And this is what actually led to Mary, sudden death, like the astrologer said. She was beheaded for treason.
Ooh, girl, you better keep your mouth shut.
So random. Now, I'm going to take us way back in the day. I guess it was the norm for rulers, like you kind of mentioned it in your history portion on Tuesday, which you did a great job on.
Thank you.
That rulers in ancient Rome, you would use astrology as their guide to rule and govern. So Caesar, he took it so seriously. I thought this was crazy. That he would have astrologers come to him and take a test. He wanted to see if they could prove their knowledge, if they knew all about the stars and all that shit you talked about. And
all that shit.
Yeah. And if they didn't pass, guess what he would do? He would throw him off a fucking cliff.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it was a serious matter. And this last part I found so fascinating. Since I'm talking about horrible human beings, I might as well bring up the ringleader of them all, the shittiest human being of all time, Hitler.
Oh, yeah, no.
Before Hitler had any ruling power, I guess it was known that he was contemplating suicide. Unfortunately...
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
And unfortunately, really? Too bad he didn't go through with it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's right. Fucking A.
But what led him to not killing himself was that he met with an astrologer. And this astrologer read his horoscope and told him, just be patient, be kind with yourself. I promise you in 30 days that everything will align for you.
Whoa.
And you will find yourself in a position of power.
And that's not that long of time.
And this was during 1932, and it wasn't even on Hitler's horizon to have any kind of fame or any kind of power.
What? I didn't know. Okay.
historians, when they tell the story, is like they're just like, how did this happen? Like, see, there was nothing in the horoscope,
how
right?
sad that this is. That's definitely a bad story for what we cover, because if that didn't happen, I mean, God, how much better the world would have been.
Yeah, and the astrologer tells him that Hitler needs a good luck charm. He needs a mandrake root, which, what the hell is a mandrake root?
What is a mandrake root?
So
Tell us.
It's a natural root that almost shaped like a human being. And I'll make sure to post a picture of it.
Does it look like a voodoo doll?
Kind of. It's creepy. And I'll make sure to post a picture of it on Instagram and Facebook, wherever you follow us, so you can kind of get a better picture for people at home.
Okay.
It's called a mandrake root. The astrologer tells Hitler that he needs to go back to his hometown to find this root to have power. And so European occultists believe that a mandrake has supernatural powers, right? Like this root is believed by lots of people to already be magical, right?
Sure, okay.
And Onusin, the astrologer, traveled to Hitler's hometown and dug up a mandrake root in a butcher's backyard. He then gifts it to Hitler, and there's actually pictures of Hitler holding this root in Vienna newspaper clippings.
Oh. Ugh.
So remember, the astrologer predicted that Hitler would have power, and according to historians, it seems super outlandish. But to the day, 30 days later, he becomes the Chancellor of Germany.
What the fuck? How? Do we know how?
I mean, I didn't get... That could be a long other story.
We need your... Then he'll take us through it too long. But yeah, no, that's wild.
Yeah.
And 30 days is not that long.
No, it's not at all.
To go from being suicidal to becoming like the biggest piece of shit in the entire world.
Yeah, and that's why the historians were saying it's so bewildering, because it's just like, how did this happen?
Well, that's not a good look for you, astrology. I don't like it. I don't like it. No one bit.
These events led to Hitler being a firm believer in astrology, and I also want to mention he believed in vampires and werewolves too.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting...
Yeah. So Onusin again, the astrologer, people now question, like, did he have insider information, or could he really just predict the future? And Hitler's colleagues also used astrology as a guide too. So I'm going to go over 3 of them that did this.
Okay.
So there's Joseph Goebbels, Heinrich Himmler, and Führer Rudolf Hess. So Joseph Goebbels, one of Hitler's colleagues, used a team of astrologers to help him sustain the war message from Nazis. And it worked because the majority of the population in Germany believed in astrology at this time.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah, and then Heinrich Himmler used a team of astrologers to help him locate Mussolini when he went missing. And when they did locate Mussolini, Himmler said it was all thanks to the fortune tellers he worked with. But I would like to note, he did not thank and mention the men who were doing, in my opinion, all the damn work of decoding radio codes to find him.
Right, is it the actual spies? Like,
yeah.
Fuck you.
It wasn't astrologers.
Of course
and
not.
then Rudolf Hess made a big decision based on the positions of Uranus and Neptune.
Uranus, my anus.
And
sorry, I had to do it.
Because of the positions, I guess, how they were aligned, it led him to flying to England without Hitler's permission, and he was going there on a mission to negotiate peace talks. Unfortunately,
really?
Yes, and unfortunately, his plane crashed in Scotland.
Fuck.
And once Hitler and his team found out why he was traveling to England, he was quickly placed in jail.
Fuck.
And in the article I kind of mentioned earlier, it's called "Hitler Used Werewolves, Vampires, Astrology to Brainwash Germany" by J.W. Cormack, a Vice News article. So I should...
Yeah, Vice does incredible work as well, or does incredible work. Oh my God. Wait, this is wild. I want to know more about this.
Yeah, and I will make sure to link the article on Facebook for anyone who wants to read the interview. It's very interesting.
Holy shit.
But they interview the author of it's called Hitler's Monsters.
Literally, like his belief in monsters.
And the guy's name is Eric Kurlander.
Okay, thank you. Wow.
And in this interview, I want to bring this up because I kind of hinted at this on Tuesday's episode a little bit. But Eric Kurlander, the author of the book, he warns that when people use the supernatural and faith-based thinking as a quote-unquote scientific thinking to solve real problem, it usually ends with the worst political and social outcomes.
Sure, that makes sense.
This is the type of thinking that can cause groups of people to have radicalized thinking. And even more alarming is that this type of thinking is common among the alt-right.
I was literally going to ask you about that. I was like, well, that makes sense. That's why we had the rise of orange face. Mm-hmm. Holy shit, I'm tracking this. Wow, okay, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
And he describes that there are very common similarities between the arguments of the alt-right and religious fundamentalists today, and the same doctrines that helped the Nazis. So basically...
Oh, God. That's so sickening. I mean, not surprising at all based on what we witnessed in the last 5 years, but...
Yeah.
But... Oh, fuck, that's scary.
And that's where I was kind of leading to when I said I think astrology is not as innocent as we may think.
No kidding.
And if it's being used within the wrong group, it can obviously have very severe consequences.
Very far-reaching, obviously, in this instance. Holy shit.
Yeah, so that is kind of my take on astrology. But before I wrap it up, I do want to mention there's endless rulers and people who are leaders have used astrology, but I'm just going to highlight a few more.
Oh, sure.
So we have General Albert von Wallenstein. He was in charge of the Catholic forces during the 30 Years' War, and he was a Libra. That's why I wanted to mention him. And he was described as not being so balanced. That's what a Libra is, right?
Supposedly we are, yeah.
And
here's my thing, though. When I was talking to this, actually, with a colleague of mine last week about my ankle, when we're off balance, we off balance. Like, it's bad. But when we are, that's beautiful and harmonious. But yeah, if any of it's tipped, it's like, oh, that bitch is crazy. Like, all or nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa. Anyway, wow. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And then in the 1970s, President Isabel Perón in Argentina, she became president when her husband passed away.
Okay.
And it's funny because several articles coined her as the clueless president. They just needed someone to fulfill the role. And it was obvious that she had no political background and she basically had no idea what she was doing. And because of this led to her, instead of, going to maybe people who have a political background, she instead goes to an astrologer to help her make these key decisions that are going to impact her country. To say anything, she didn't last long as a president. But she was using horoscopes, like literally using horoscopes from astrologer to make these huge, impactful decisions that would impact Argentina. And this was a time when Argentina was already in a violent civil... Yeah, and they were already in this violent civil unrest. So her being the president didn't help at all.
Oh, no.
And with the guide of her astrologer, again, this is kind of showing how astrology is not so innocent all the time. She started a death squad that carried out terrorism, which was called the Argentine Anti-Communist Alliance.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, South America's got some fucked up shit going on. It's so sad.
And then we have Cleopatra, and then India's Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, along with Alexander the Great, which I know you mentioned, and François Mitterrand, the president of France in the 1960s, and countless others who've used astrology as a tool, which I thought this was extremely fascinating.
It really is. Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, especially the Hitler tie.
Yes, Hitler. What the hell?
And the fact that he believed in werewolves and vampires. That I almost think we could do a whole episode about that.
Yes.
There was so much information. I was like, oh, this will be... Table it for another day.
Yeah, and oh my God, that's insane. And like exactly like we always say, power in the wrong hands or tool, technology in the wrong hands. Look what happens. We get shitty people. Like, wow, who would have thunk? That makes me sad for astrology, but it ain't astrology's fault, y'all. It's the people's fault. God damn it. So, we took a little bit of a different turn production schedule-wise this week. We're releasing Friday our astrology stories because I took a little time to dig deeper into the old Hitler horoscope myth. So, if you allow me to dive in, Ames, I've got some more to tell you.
I'm interested.
Wild shit, even... so more wild than what you've already covered with Hitler believing in monsters.
Well, I never thought in a million years that our astrology episode would lead us to Hitler.
Right.
But there's so much information out there about it.
There really is. And this is fascinating. Excuse me. Sorry. Super fascinating. And it's also really scarily interesting to me because it has a lot of PR and fake news vibes to the part I'm going to cover. And propaganda as it relates to World War II.
Let's get into it.
So you ready?
Yes.
All right. We all know that we're all fascinated by evil, right? Like we all want to know, we talk about this all the time on our podcast, good versus evil, shitty people versus good people. Now, are good people inherently created or not? That's something you and I debate all the time. I think that people are also interested in using astrology to dive into, those who believe in astrology and are mystified by it, like to use it and try to point to it to find evil in people's birth charts, i.e. Hitler.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like people are like, oh, I would never date a Capricorn.
Right, or a Scorpio is what I hear a lot, which I'm just 1 month close to, next to the
I think I came across when I was researching that Gemini, my sign's like the worst sign to date.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
but I'm sure there's an article about every damn sign out there.
Oh yeah, I'm flaky, which I know you're nodding. What else am I vain? All sorts of shit about we Libras. So
I think, well, because I'm the
supposedly
twin,
two-faced,
so
but you're not.
Two-faced.
That's actually a myth, by the way. We'll get into it another time because we don't have time today. But you're not. That's not what it means. Just you're very dynamic, and then you have different, very deep and different assets of your personality. So
I concur.
That's what it means from me, the professional astrologer. Yeah.
Well, first of all, what's Hitler's sign?
He is a Libra rising and a Taurus sun. So again, we have psychologists and historians as well as the general public trying to use astrology to quantify, demystify, try to figure out why there's evil people and rulers in this world that you covered so beautifully and looking to the chart. But a famous astrologer, Michelle Young, said that when you look at Hitler's chart, you actually don't see evil unless you're totally picking it apart. So he is a Taurus. Thank you, Amy, for looking that up. I thought so. So Corey might be Hitler. Watch out. You might be. No, just playing.
Maybe that's the worst sign to date / marry.
Well, according to Michelle Young, who I just quoted, they're really, just by looking from an astrological standpoint, no evil inherently written in his chart. You have to really go in to pick it apart, which is what humans, I think, try to do, again, to make sense of the evil that these rulers and leaders have committed in the world.
Well, I think a lot of it's like in the sick fascination that we have with these types of people is like trying to understand why. But I think a lot of times there's no rhyme or reason.
Exactly. And another astrologer in this article quoted, it's how, or said, alluded to, it's how we wrestle with the terrible things that happen in the world. And when senseless atrocities to humankind happen, like that of the Holocaust, we need to make sense of it because we can't fathom that humans could be capable of such grotesque, dark deeds.
Well, yeah, and I think as humans, we're wired to want to know the why or find reasoning behind things or look into things and try to find meaning sometimes when there's not even meaning there.
Exactly. And I think people go to astrology again to see, and it's the fundamental question that many of us ask, was this going to happen all along? Or again, to your point, is it just a matter of oops? Well,
it kind of reminds me of, I don't know what they call it in Christianity, but kind of like it's God's will, like whatever happened was planned for you. Is there a name for that?
Godspeed? You mean the saying, like Godspeed?
No, like people will say it was like predestined, that God already had planned that for you.
Oh, I don't know if there's me being the great Catholic I am, don't know if there's an actual other term for that than just destiny or God's will, like you said.
Yeah, I didn't know, because astrology kind of borders that thought as well a little bit.
No, it totally does. So you mentioned, we'll go back into how the hell did Hitler's horoscope ever even become of interest? You definitely touched on it in your story when you mentioned in 1923 the German astrologer Elsbeth Eberton. Elsbeth self-published an anonymous politician's horoscope. This politician was born, as you covered, April 20th, 1889, Hitler's birthday. And they definitely thought through this chart that she created that this was his chart. They predicted that he would be a fighter and he might be putting himself in danger.
Who published this?
Elsbeth Everton.
I know, but like her own personal book?
Yeah,
publication?
Part of her book. Yeah.
When?
1923.
Okay. So was it a popular book?
I think it was, because I'll get to it. There was like a cult underground following. In obviously America, it became pop culture versus cult following. But then in Germany, it was like underground, because at some point, I'll get to it, Hitler actually bans all of the occult in Germany.
Oh, okay.
And occult obviously includes astrology and tarot cards and all the shit I'm into.
Mm-hmm.
So, despite being blonde, blue-eyed, and German, I might have been executed for my beliefs in Germany during that time. Had they found all my tarot decks and all my crystals and shit.
Well, I think you would throw that shit out the window.
I mean, I don't know. I'm Hins, for God's sakes. I couldn't be more effing German than I am, but Heinz! Krista, Heinz! Sadly, I don't speak any German, though.
Sprechen nicht Deutsch.
No surprise. Elsbeth Albertine's chart was totally wrong. She placed, here you go, this is where we get to it, and this is maybe why you thought he was Aries. She placed Hitler's sun sign, and as we recall from my history, sun is your birth month sign, the one that we're all relatable to. You Gemini, me, Libra. Those are sun signs. Albertine placed Hitler's sun sign in Aries, when in fact, he's a well-known Taurus. And regardless, people went crazy for astrology. And in Germany at the time, astrology was insanely popular. Eventually, it will go underground because of Hitler.
Well, that whole article I referenced in my story was talking about that. Like astrology and like the belief in vampires and werewolves. That was like a mainstream belief at that time.
Exactly. And it also, the book you referenced, Hitler's Monsters, again, talks about how the Germans got their Indo-Aryan beliefs to create this bullshit grand racial hierarchy by using the quote-unquote guides of astrology and the occult.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Some bullshit you can't know. Regardless, as I said, though, Hitler himself actually, even though he believed in monsters and vampires, he actually put himself at a distance from the quote-unquote dark arts. He actually never even asked for anyone to do his horoscope. It was just done. And Elsbeth was attached to him, even though it may or may not have been his.
So was she a fan of him or anti-Hitler?
I thought she was a fan.
Okay.
Of him. And
so it was like people who were buying his horoscope were fans.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And eventually, and I'm going to get into this very shortly, it becomes a tool to outsmart and outwit the old Nazi party and the Third Reich. Bring down the Third Reich! It's interesting, though, because this website that I referenced called Astro Theme, it actually has an algorithm that ranks people's charts, birth charts. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, also, many of Hitler's main guys, assholes, I'll say, willingly, were all into their own horoscopes and had personal astrologers. So his leading SS men had personal astrologers.
Yeah, I kind of touched on that, like the main three.
Yep, exactly. And I'll touch on them a little bit more. According to this app, top Nazi officers Rudolf Hess, who you mentioned, is ranked 18th in the 1800th ranking on this website. Heinrich Himmler, 638th.
What are they ranking them for?
They're identifying the hidden signs of like their ability to be leaders and powerful people. So it's like this algorithm that they use with the numbers somehow in their charts, their birth charts, and it like ranks them on like their accuracy of
what?
Like if they actually became what the birth chart said they were destined for, kind of thing.
Oh, okay. So it's like whatever the birth chart predicted, they rank how true it actually was.
It's cool. I want to kind of do it, but I think it's only for famous people, but it's really, really cool. They also help see, this website looks into hidden signs and writings of Nostradamus, but also has this algorithm that ranks.
So this was after the time.
Oh yeah, this is an app that's modern now that ranks all these famous people.
Okay.
And their horoscopes or the birth charts.
Okay, sorry, I was confused.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. It was just a really cool website, so I wanted to bring up. But according to that, in Hitler's, as again, not even accurate. Like, doesn't say anything to pointing to him being anything other than...
Oh, so astrology isn't real.
Maybe not. I don't know. No, I still believe in it, obviously. But it points actually to Hitler's apparently being neutral, which is like...
Neutral on what?
In life. Like, no evil, no bad, no good, no...
Okay.
Goodness. Or to create goodness in the world. Just neutral. To me, I don't think you need to consult a goddamn horoscope or birth chart to know that he's evil. He just is. We know this.
Well, he's the opposite of neutral.
Right. Look at
like a ticking time bomb
he committed. Exactly. So, astrology aside, he's a piece of shit, as we know. And hopefully, if there is a hell, he down there somewhere with Satan or Beelzebub, as we covered. But okay, back to how the hell his horoscope became a thing. It's 1941. We're heading right in the throes of World War II.
Okay.
And shit is going down across Europe. Hitler's rising to power and really invading and causing all sorts of horrific things for European countries and citizens and people. There was a British astrologer named Louis DeWohl. He was actually, even though he's British, he was gaining some real fangirls/fan people in the U.S.,
So he's like the Beatles of astrology.
Basically. Yeah, honestly. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. He had a column with supposedly accurate predictions that became more and more accurate as they were published, called The Stars Foretell.
The stars what?
Foretell,
okay.
Yep. And so these reader numbers, as I said, were growing by the masses. And this is funny, their little play on words. This article said, they escalated to... his readership escalated to meteoric heights. I'm like, okay, that's corny, but I liked it. But anyway, unfortunately, the consequences of those said predictions, quote-unquote predictions, had some, well, fortunately for the U.S., I'll say, had some wildly far-reaching consequences for us and the world, honestly. So, cut to, still 1941, in August. So, cut to later that year, he's gaining mad popularity with his Stars Foretell column. So much popularity, in fact, the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, which I have to abide by, regulated by, is lifted. You and I aren't. I mean, we're not. Please. Please. First of all, we're independent. Fuck off, FCC. Anyway, it back then was very regulatory, still is to this day, for mass media corps, but because of the money machine, it lifted its ban on astrology in newspapers and in media and TV.
So there used to be a ban beforehand?
Yep. I didn't know that. Actually, this was a piece of information I learned today.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I'm like, what? How? Because now, as we know, horoscopes are in weekly, daily, like the Daily Beast and Bub.
Well, it's where you found them growing up.
Yep, exactly. 17 Mag, like I read a monthly, radio. I mean, they're everywhere in media. We covered that in my history. And I think it has a large portion to do with the FCC lifting that ban because of DeWohl. He continued to gain that popularity even more, especially after the FCC. He was noted as the modern Nostradamus, or became widely known, because his predictions were supposedly so accurate. Continuing another precedent for U.S. history and media, he was in a newsreel and TV news of the day, and just talking about his prophecies and astrology, and he hit 39 million, I think, right? That's million. Yeah, 39 million viewers with his first ever astrological TV appearance.
Oh, wow.
In main media.
That's impressive.
Yeah. However,
That's like Oprah numbers.
yeah, for real. I think that's million, right? 00,000.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh my God, guys.
God,
Sorry.
I'm going to sign you up for some math
Anything
classes.
math.
1 plus 1 equals what?
What? Okay, so 39 million viewers. Huge. Like Oprah numbers, Amy said. And I think it just capitalized on people's morbid curiosity and fascination with the events of the day and trying to make sense of the chaos that was going on in the world at that time.
Well, it's probably a way to escape reality, too.
And it sure was, because guess what?
What? Tell me now.
It was all fake news.
Oh, wow.
Fake news. Do you know why?
Why?
Because he was actually an implant. Is that what you call it? A plant.
He was a snake plant. He was a fig tree.
Right there. My new snake. He's right there in my apartment. He was a spy for the British intelligence.
Whoa.
During World War II. Let me tell you how this shit went down.
So they hired an astrologer?
Yes. Can you believe that shit? I do.
After my story, yes, but still, it's freaking crazy.
Yeah. So it wasn't just harmless horoscopes that he was spouting out, which we all consume like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, maybe astrology can be harmful in this way.
Oh, I like to be right.
Might have been. This whole damn thing, not only was it fake news, it was a very carefully orchestrated PR stunt on behalf of the British government.
Wow.
To try to garner support from the U.S. to back them in World War II. And guess what?
No
it worked.
way.
As we know, it worked very well.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so as he continued to write these horoscopes and predictions, they were all being fed to him actually by the British intelligence unit M15.
Wow.
Every single one of these things that people in America, the Americans ate up and loved and just like consumed rapidly, or like, oh my God, Hitler's going to do what? They all.
So the predictions were always about Hitler. They weren't about people. They weren't. He wasn't like, oh, Gemini's going to have this happen to their day.
Right. It was like about the war efforts, basically.
Oh, okay. So, I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes more sense
and
now.
So I'm sure he had some of that in there too, right? To like pepper it in with the column about other predictions going on in the world.
I thought he was just doing general horoscopes too.
So he predicted several things about what happened in the war.
Okay.
We have DeWohl doing these insanely accurate predictions of what's going to happen in the war. What's going on in Europe? What's happening? What's Hitler going to do? What's going to happen to him? What's happening with other leaders at the time? What do you call them? Oh my God.
Like generals or?
Generals and, my God, help me out. My brain is so
like
fine.
Military?
Militant leaders. Dictators.
Dictators.
There's the word.
Okay.
There it is. How could I forget the word dictators? Ooh, must be time to refuel. Somebody, if you're listening.
Oh my God, you're dirty.
Okay. All right, so we have DeWohl working for the M15, and not technically directly for Winston Churchill, but adjacently for Winston Churchill. So DeWohl, the astrologer, was actually hired by a spy master named Sir William Stevenson. And Stevenson famously worked with Churchill, and Churchill knew how badass that guy was, like as a spy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he called him the Intrepid.
Wow.
So all this is going on, and we're getting fed as Americans all these predictions that are like so amazingly true about Hitler and dictators around the world.
So did they think like? So the assumption was that by doing this, like, the Americans would fall in love with the British because they're like, oh, they're on it and they know what's happening?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. You nailed it. So one famous prediction said in June 1941 from DeWohl that actually they claimed was true. It turns out it never did happen, but he claimed a strong collaborator of Hitler who is neither German nor a Nazi will go violently insane, which is what he foretold in his foretelling of the stars.
Okay.
He'll be in South or Central America, probably near the Caribbean Sea, the leader who goes insane. 3 days later, U.S. papers reported that Vicky the High Commissioner of the Fresh West Indies, named Admiral Georges Robert, had gone insane and had to be restrained by his staff.
And he was a Nazi?
No, he was another dictator in South America.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what, DeWohl had just claimed.
So I'm assuming the British had insider information, so this is why the predictions were so accurate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Their spies were on that shit like white on rice, and they were like, yo, DeWohl, you got to publish this. Feed it, feed it, feed it. Fake news, fake news. Today, I would call that and teach my students that's mal, mis, and disinformation. This will be categorized as malinformation because they're purposely trying to give wrong messaging to the public. Okay. Bad information to the public.
Okay.
This is what happened in our 2016 election is exactly the tactic that was used here.
Wow. Interesting.
By Russia.
Yeah.
Isn't it fascinating?
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah, this is crazy.
So the PR girl here again is like, excuse me? Makes sense. Mm-hmm. Genius strategy, but not ethical, as we know. A big ethics geek. So anyway, turns out the guy in South America actually never went insane, but the British used that story to feed it to the press.
But they later came out and said they pretended he did become insane.
They did.
So they fabricated a whole story.
All again, just to get the Americans to be on board and support Great Britain.
Okay.
In World War II.
Which
in a way, thankfully, for us we did. Because imagine if we didn't get involved in the war,
Yeah.
Maybe Hitler could have taken over.
Do you know if we were not very involved at that point?
No, we weren't until we got bombed by Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
Which I don't have the exact date.
That's okay.
Anyhow, we were watching it from afar and like, oh shit. That's why the Great Britain needed us. They needed our support. Our war machine is what they called it, to stop this fascist rise across Europe. It continues. The CIA then wasn't even created, but now the CIA's office said that DeWohl was also working with a U.S. spy later as we progress into the war. This is Chief Colonel William Donovan to quote-unquote coordinate and oversee U.S. intelligence collection and analysis efforts. So once we got in on it, we were in on it. But it was really the concoction of British PR strategy.
Wow.
To feed us the news, so we got on board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as I said, all of DeWohl's phony predictions were intended to help sway the public opinion away from the U.S. Because at the time, we were being quote-unquote isolationist, meaning, okay, we're not going to get involved. Y'all handle your shit in Europe. Whatever, this Hitler dude. However, again, Britain was like, nah, y'all, we need their war efforts and all their money and big war machine that it is still today, that we are still today, rather, to overcome this. Because of that, the British spy Stevenson, who again was called the Intrepid by Churchill, said of DeWohl that an ever-growing audience is becoming convinced of his, meaning DeWohl's, supernatural powers. So using this supernatural was actually borrowed from the Nazis.
Wow.
Before it was banned by Hitler. As you mentioned, numerous high-ranking Nazi officials were obsessed with astrology, map dowsing. I don't even know what the fuck that is, as the woo-woo of the group.
What is it?
Map dowsing? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
I've heard of dowsing rods, where you try to identify...
Map dowsing?
It's a form of divination of sorts. I don't know what it entails. Amy's looking it up, as I'll continue. But Heinrich Himmler, an SS officer, had such an interest in the quote-unquote occult that he actually created his own branch to study the occult called Uberpufrig der Sonnenstunden.
Oh, very nice.
Nailed it. I will have to put that up online because, no, like I said, this German heritage gal does not speak a lick of
Do you want me to interject?
Yeah, please tell us what our map dowsing.
So the article starts with, map dowsing can be a topic which causes some people to shake their heads in disbelief. Really what it is, map dowsing is a dowsing process of making educated guesses on geographic area by looking at a piece of paper with no writing on it, even if the dowser has never been there. So kind of imagine like you're a pendulum swinging.
Oh, I've seen this in all Ghost Adventure stuff. Okay, I just didn't know that's what it was called.
And people typically use it for guessing the number of people in an area, guessing the likely amount of traffic on roads, guessing the size of building.
Guessing all of it. I love it.
Guessing what the weather might be like, map dowsing for lost pets, map dowsing for gold, and map dowsing for lost or stolen objects. So that's what map dowsing is.
Thank you, Amy, for looking up map dowsing. I have seen that shit on Ghost Adventures and God knows what other, whack shit I watch, but according to you, whack, I love my supernatural.
I was going to say dumbass shit.
But I have seen it in practice. Moving on, where we know the U.S. and the American population is being fooled by this astrology very strategically now by and through this British war strategy and astrologer. Meantime, though, as I was saying, British actually took this tip right from the Nazis themselves. And at this time, as you said, people in Germany were obsessed with divination. Mm-hmm. And the quote-unquote occult. And Heinrich Himmler, who was one of the infamous SS officers, even created a Nazi science academy. And I'm not going to say it again. But in English, it's basically called the occult sciences research that included extrasensory perception research, throwback to our first episode, where you can see in your mind something before it's done or said, or you can hear it as it's happening while not being in the room. Astrology, again, and map dowsing and channeling. Scientists around the world came to learn and research and study all these things at Himmler's center in Germany.
Wow.
So Himmler had this center that he even created. Another SS officer,
Furrier?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
What Amy said, y'all.
I don't know if I'm saying it right. I'm trying.
Walter Schellenberg. What does that mean, by the way, Führer? Because they kept referring to Hitler as that ruler, leader.
I thought it meant sir, but I might be wrong.
Himmler, again, was not alone. And another leader in Germany, SS.
It means a Führer. Here, I got some help from the internet.
Fur, like fern?
That's how you pronounce it, Führer.
Food.
But it means a ruthless, tyrannical leader. That's what it means.
Okay, well, that tracks. And all these assholes, they're all doing it, essentially. All the SS officers are like, what up? We're going to use this shit. We're going to use it against you. Until Hitler himself was like, I see y'all. You're going to go behind my back, which they did. 3 of them did. Mm-hmm. Which also was reported in the DeWohl's astrology blog that they would go against 3 of his top men would turn their back on him.
Oh, wow.
Because we knew this through British intelligence, obviously, and later U.S. intelligence. Mm-hmm. Hitler said, hell no. Banned it all. Everything in Germany.
I know he tried to distance himself from astrology.
Yep, exactly. Basically took it all away from people. And the Gestapo, he gave the Gestapo like full rights, I guess, to go in and burn tarot and take them away.
Which is funny, though, because that's part of the reason he didn't commit suicide.
Isn't that awkward? Or like...
I don't know if not awkward, ironic.
Ironic is the word. Yeah. Jesus, my brain today. They still lost the war. Thank God. I don't know. That's really all thanks to one astrologer, DeWohl, for ending the war.
Wow.
And that's how we won.
That's crazy.
In
That's
a
an awesome story.
large nutshell.
I love how the 2 stories are so intertwined. It's just amazing to me how much astrology has shaped our history, and I would never have thought about that before this episode.
Right? Very much so. Even back to what I covered in Greek times, right? And through the Babylonians, our science of actually knowing our universe, too. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. But I loved this piece and the one you covered and for putting me onto this because of again, like we always say, anything in the wrong hands, look what can happen. So the strategy was used against yourself, Hitler. So fuck off.
No, great job. It was a good episode.
Thanks.
That was a lot of fun.
How do we say goodbye in German?
God, I should know
Guten
that. My
Tag?
memory.
No, that's thank you.
Guten Tag's hello.
Oh, it is?
How do I not remember that?
Danke?
Well, I guess my memory is not very good.
My sister used to go to Europe a lot more than I ever have because I've never been yet. But she would always say she remembers the German trains going, Einstein, bitte? Like, enter, please.
Yeah. Well, German is like a very guttural, not beautiful language. It's very in your throat.
Auf Wiedersehen. Oh, that's what Heidi
Auf
Klum always
Wiedersehen.
did.
I know that.
She always says that shit in Project Runway. Okay.
Next week, we are covering secret societies, and I have to tell you the history. I'm so excited to cover it. It's going to be really fascinating.
I got a wild story, too.
Yeah, my story, I never had heard of it before. I'm going to learn how to pronounce it before next week's episode. But
Okay.
It's the megalomaniacs. Definitely Irish-based, if you can tell.
Very cool. For mine, I've got a little bit of history about the order I'm covering, or the society I'm covering, but there's a story behind it way back from the 1800s that was like blew my mind. So super excited to share that with you.
Yeah, it'll be a fun episode. So tune in. Again, if you enjoyed, please rate, review, and subscribe. It means the world to us.
It sure does. And I'm going to say Auf Wiedersehen.
And I'm going to say I hope the stars align for you this upcoming week and have a good weekend. Or if you're listening to this a month from now, maybe have a good year.
Have
but
a
anyway,
great month.
Yeah, just have a good life.
It is the year of in the Chinese astrology, which we'll have to do a whole nother episode on because that's a whole nother ball game of astrology. The year of the tiger. So,
anyway, let's say peace, bewitches.
peace.
Hey. Thanks for listening. Check us out on Instagram or bewitchbanter.com. Suggestions for the show? Email us at bewitchbanter@gmail.com. Credits, music Phantom Fun by Jonathan Boyle from premiumbeat.com. Podcast, edited and produced by Krista Hins and Amy Holt. As always, if you enjoyed, please rate, review, and subscribe.